Let's go to 1 Timothy chapter 2. God wants to clothe us with his garments of righteousness. 1 Timothy chapter 2. 1 Timothy chapter 2, and let's read verse 9, talking about clothing, talking about garments, talking about apparel. It says, in like manner also that the women adore themselves in modest apparel. Now remember, in Isaiah chapter 3, the women, the daughters of Zion, God's people, they were not clothed in modest apparel. They were with all types of ornaments, with all types of fancy clothing, expensive extravagance, all for gratification of themselves. Here, God says, in like manner that the women adore themselves in modest apparel, with shamefacedness, sobriety, not with broided hair, or gold, or pearls, or costly array, but which becometh women professing godliness unto all good works. So how do we profess godliness, especially women, but this also goes with men? How do we profess godliness? By dressing modest, without fancy apparel, without the gold and the pearls and the costly array. God here is saying, he's saying the difference between the worldlings, the world influence, and the Christian influence. When you're a Christian and you follow God, you put on modest apparel because watch this. When you dress like a harlot, people are going to think you are a harlot. Men, if you dress like a lazy bum, people are going to think you are a lazy bum. When you dress like a pimp, people are going to think that you are a pimp. When you dress like, when you dress like a military or like a policeman, people are going to assume you are a military or you're a policeman. There's a certain standard, there's a certain dress code. Same thing in Christianity. When we give our life to Christ, Christ changes our lives and he says, hey, I want you to dress this way. Why? Because women who profess godliness, people who profess godliness, this is how the way they dress. And the problem is, in the church, we lay this aside and we say, no, we want to wear our own apparel. We want to wear our own dress. And we have women in the church, this is sad, we have women in God's church, professing Christians, who say, who go to church and they dress like prostitutes. They dress like harlots, and they're even in the platform singing and they're dressed like harlots. They wear harlots attire. Sometimes I can even find harlots in the streets. Sometimes I see harlots in the streets and they dress and they cover up a little more than some of the women in the church. That's shameful. Because here comes men, here comes godly men, people who are fighting the lust of the flesh, and they're leaving the world and they're going to the church to try to get closer to God and to try to have the influence of godly people. But then what do they find in the church? They find in the church women dressing just like the women in the world. Just like the harlots of the world. And now, what they thought that they will get victory over sin in the church, now they're fighting the sin that they will fight in the world, or fighting it in church. That's sad. That is a sad condition. But what do we say? Oh no, God doesn't care about what we dress. The Lord knows my heart. Same thing with guys. Hey guys, sometimes we like to wear tight clothing. So the ladies we can show our muscles. They can see our muscles. Forget about none of that. We're not coming to church to please or show off to somebody. We're coming to church to worship God, and there's a standard of dress to be followed. You can even go to 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 3 through 5. Peter talks about the same thing. Not with gold, not with stones or pearls, but women, Peter says, to dress modestly, because the holy women of old, that's how the way they used to dress. Because when you dress modest, when you see a woman and she is revealing all parts of her body like a harlot, guess what? That calls attention to self-gratification and lustful, sinful thoughts and thinking. But when you see a woman dressed godly, dressed modestly, it calls attention to God.